I need a guide, and this will only take an hour and a half, so please excuse this, okay? But I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for the support, and especially for the library. We really appreciate that. Everybody in Freeport, I'm not a native, but everybody knows me as Donna Clappett's husband. So this is my attempt, so you know me by my own name. So for those that don't know me, my name is Steve Gardner, okay? Not just thanks for everybody here, but I have special thanks. My family came from California, Washington, D.C., and New Jersey. So I like to... So my sister, Debbie, and her husband, Bob, from Orland, California. My nephew, Chris, and his wife, Ashley, and their kids, Braden, Blake, and Bailey, from Sonora, California. And they're all really happy to be here for the cooler weather and for the rain, because they haven't had that for quite a long time. My son, Brian, and his wife, Lisa, and my grandkids, Finn and Molly, came from Ashburn, Virginia, outside of D.C., and then my son Sean and his wife Patty, with grandkids Abby and Claire, came from Marlton, New Jersey. So that was real special to me, and I thank them very much. I also like to thank my mother-in-law, Nanny Clappett, wherever Nanny is. Right in front of me. Nanny is a spry 91, and I'm just happy to have her here. I'm from a military family, so I've traveled my whole life. My dad was in the military. He retired in 1962. After that, after I went to Magalia, California, I lived there for only 5 years. And then I went into the military. I was drafted and went in the Air Force in '67. And then after college, after I got out, went to college, and I came back into the Navy. And so I had a total of 26 years service. And so I've traveled my whole life. So I've never really been able to call a place home until I came to Freeport. So I've been here for 16 years now. Thanks. And to let you know about what I mean by a military family is my mom was from North Dakota, my dad was from West Virginia, they met in California, they got married in Texas, and I was born in Tennessee. So that's what it's all about. When I was in the Navy, I was leaving Puerto Rico as a single parent. I had Brian and Sean, and we moved to San Diego. And I met this cute Navy nurse who happened to be from Freeport. And so here I am. Again, I'm hopefully not known as Donna Clappett's husband anymore, but my name's Steve Gardner. We got married in San Diego, and she took on three guys and a dog. So I mean, she's a brave woman. So I thank her for that. And she gave me my hometown. So I really thank her for that. We stayed in South Carolina after we retired and came up here in 2002, and we've been here ever since. I started this project 2.5 years ago, so it's been a long time. And how I got into this is I do amateur genealogy, and I was helping Kathleen Huth with the Easleys and the Huth families, and eventually got her addicted to genealogy too. However, she said that her great-grandfather was a cooper for Guggenheimer's distillery. I go, what in the heck is that? So that's how I got interested in the history of Freeport, and it's strictly through Kathleen and her family's history and Guggenheimer's distillery. So she brought me some flowers today, and it's got 2 Guggenheimer salt and pepper shakers in it, so I thought that was pretty cool. Many people have contributed to the content of this book. I can't name them all. A lot of you are in here today, so I collectively want to thank you all for your support, for providing your memories, and providing the photographs that are in the book. There's hundreds of photographs in the book, and I hope you enjoy them. First and foremost, I want to thank my wife, Donna, for her love and determination, for her help in getting this book done by the deadline. It was getting down to the nitty-gritties, so I think we got them a week and a half before the deadline. Another person that I want to thank personally, this book would not have been written or completed without the assistance of Lisa Camerlo. Lisa has a huge collection of photographs, mementos, and this book would not have been completed at all without her assistance, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Nancy Hagen's has been a true champion of this book, helping with the resources that she has in the library, coordinating this event, and promoting sales. She's really been helping out in promoting sales. So I thank Nancy and the entire library staff for their help, and thank you for this recognition today. Just 20 more pages. For the newspaper article that was done by Rex Bukowski last week, Rex called me and he goes, "What were the 10 most surprising things about Freeport that you found in your research?" And I just wrote back and said, "Heck, Rex, it's all surprising. I'm not from Freeport." Anyway, I don't have your memories, but have learned from everyone that I've interviewed and all the people that I've talked to that said that this is a great town to grow up in, that it's community focused and it's family based. And that seems to be the general theme from everybody that I talked to. The biggest surprise that I found for the book, I didn't want Rex to put in the newspaper, but in Beers and Smith's histories of Armstrong County, written in 1914 and 1883 respectively, they mentioned the Todd Brothers discovering the town. A lot of you heard a lot about the Todd Brothers, and since that time, it's always been known, because I see papers at the mayor's office and everything else thanking those Todd Brothers. Well, I've upset the apple cart. One thing that I did find in the Department of Real Estate in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the biggest surprise I found, because I was researching, this was Allegheny County at one time. So I looked down there and I found 2 indentures from 1787. And in those indentures, William Todd, one of the town founders, gave his son, David Todd, out, and I'll quote this, "For his love and natural affection he beareth to his said son for his further advancement in life." He gave him half of Freeport and half of Todd Island. So that was proof that they're not brothers, that they're actually father and son. So that was the biggest surprise that I did find. Some of the funny things that happened while doing the book, the cover was the hardest thing to do. I just want to mention that I had to convert all the files for you computer guys to PDF files for the printer to print. And they said, "Oh no, you have to have the cover done before you send it to me." Well, I didn't know how to do that. I had the picture and I had the font and everything. So they said, well, a lot of people use Adobe ID program. So I got online, and just so happened I could download Adobe ID for free for a 1-week trial. So I downloaded Adobe ID, and I couldn't figure out how to use it. And my sons even told me that's the most unuser program in the whole world. So it's had a chat line. So I got on the chat line asking for help, and Durakashan from India got online. So I sat in front of my computer and watched the cursor going back and forth with my hands down to the side. She took control of my computer. Durakashan from India did the cover. And she did it for free. And then I got rid of the program as soon as it was all done. The only thing I was unable to find in my research was the actual original town drawing, the plan for the first 135 lots. It's not in existence. I checked with Westmoreland, Allegheny, and Armstrong County, and at the Pennsylvania State Archives, and it doesn't exist. And on the original 135 indentures, it just says, intended to be recorded in the county of Allegheny. It was never recorded. So there's no map or drawing of the original plan of Freeport. But I was able to take photographs. They took me through all the security and set me up, gave me a stool so I could take pictures of the original 2x3 map of District 5 that Joshua Elder did of where Freeport is for the depreciation lands. A picture of that's in the book. Also the 2 original surveys for Union and Friendship that became Freeport. And then the original patents for Freeport. So those are all in chapter 2 and 3. Several positive things have come out of during the research, which I would like to bring to attention. John and Brenda Dimino heard that I was writing a book, and they brought over this huge wooden box with a glass cover, and it says Freeport 16229 in stencil. And they said, Steve, it's a bunch of papers we've had on our porch. We heard you're writing a book. We just thought you'd like to look at them and see if there's anything you can use. What John and Brenda Dimino had were 13 original editions of the newspaper The Olive Branch, published in Freeport from 1833 to 1835, the first newspaper in the Allegheny Valley. And what I've done with them is I've given them to Carnegie Mellon University. They're preserving them and photographing them, and we're going to get copies of them. But I have a little bit more about the newspaper stuff. Also in there were Freeport High School programs from the original public school, the first year of graduation from the junior-senior high on 4th Street, and the Freeport Journal. And they also had 4 original copies of the Valley, is it Valley Times? Valley News. No, Valley Times. And everybody goes, what the heck's a Valley Times? I didn't know what it was. But when the New Era was sold, they sold it to a guy, Mr. McCulloch, who ran the Valley Times, and it was only for 1 year. They also had 4 original editions of the Valley Times, and these are the only known ones to exist. So they're going to be kept, right now they're at Carnegie Mellon. Another important thing about that is James Armstrong is written with a quill pen at the top of every single page of the Olive Branch. Who was James Armstrong? He's actually a pretty important guy in Freeport. James Armstrong ended up getting, sometimes by crookery I think, he married William Todd's daughter Lois and lived in Freeport. He is the one that gave property. He inherited all the unsold property that William and David Todd had. William and David didn't make any money off these lots because they sold them for $24 a piece. However, James Armstrong inherited all these lots, except William got a couple, the son William got a couple lots. He's the one that gave property to the cemetery on 4th Street. He gave property for the churches in town. And there was one other thing he gave. And he expanded the original town plan north of High Street. So Buffalo and Franklin and all those streets was given by James Armstrong. Not given, he sold them, but he made money off of them. When I called and told Carnegie Mellon that I had these newspapers, they were so excited. And they said, there just happens to be a program going on in Pennsylvania. Penn State University libraries have partnered with other institutions in the Commonwealth to participate in nationally coordinated programs to find, catalog, preserve, and enhance access to all the newspapers published in Pennsylvania. Since 1719, there are 7,921 newspapers in Pennsylvania. And it's called the National Digital Newspaper Program. So what they're doing now is they're collecting newspapers from all over the country. And eventually, the Library of Congress will have them all digitally stored, and you'll be able to access them online. What Carnegie Mellon is doing is they're preserving, and I talked to and had approved from the library board. So we took all of the copies of the Freeport Journal, the Freeport Columbian, the Olive Branch, the Valley Times, and the New Era. Everything that we had, I took down in 2 loads in my Explorer, and I had pieces of stuff flying all over my car. But I took them down there, and we're next in line to have every single edition preserved, photographed, and they're going to be maintained at Penn State University in an archival, environmentally correct storage for future generations. But another thing that they're going to do is give us copies, microfilm and digital copies of all those newspapers for research. One of the things I always wondered is what happened to all those records from the Baptist Church at the corner of Washington Street and Buffalo Street. There used to be a Baptist church next to the Lindell's house. And I said, God, how do I find this? So I called the Western Pennsylvania Conference, and they said, no, we don't have them. Call Nashville, Tennessee. So I called the Southern Baptist Society in Nashville, and they said, I don't have them. Call Atlanta, Georgia, and talk to Jill Sweetapple. So I called Atlanta, and I talked to Jill Sweetapple, and she says, let me see. They had a box of information on the Baptist Church from Freeport, Pennsylvania. They had the original covenants from 1833, the original Great Seal, and the original, there was something else in there they had, but it was all had to do with the church, and the meeting minutes of the church. So I said, well, I need some pictures of those things so I can put them in the book. And so they sent back a price list. And I said, look, I'm paying for this out of pocket. I'll give you pictures of the church. And I said, the profits are going to the library. She goes, oh, we can consider that a charity. Here, we'll give you the pictures. So there in the chapter on churches, I have a picture of the Great Seal and the first page of the covenants from the Baptist Church. And so I thought that was a neat thing to find out. And there's also, if you have genealogy research that you want to find out about that church or members, I put down an email address in the book. Another thing I found that's going to benefit, I think, is there used to be a Grand Army of the Republic Post 32, Henry Weaver's post in Freeport. The Grand Army Republic was like the Civil War VFW. There is absolutely no records at Penn State University, at the Pennsylvania Library, and there's a Grand Army of the Republic room in Carnegie Library in Carnegie. No record of Freeport. So I said, well, there's got to be something. Well, Gordon Brenneman, thank you, Gordon, called me one day. Gordon's going to start hopefully a museum up at the old Episcopalian Church. Gordon says, I've got some more papers for you to go through. In his group, he didn't know he had this. In his papers, he had a little journal, and it was called the Descriptive Book. And what it was were the membership, their father who fought in the Civil War, and all the minutes and account books of the Sons of the Union Veterans. And it lists all the veterans from Freeport that were members, because you had to be a member of the Sons of Union Veteran, you had to have a father that fought in the Civil War. It lists their enlistment date, their name, the day that they got out of the service, if they were wounded, and what unit they were in. I have put all that information in the book. So that should help with genealogy, those folks that do genealogies for their family. I do have one picture of the descriptive book, but Nancy is going to I took a picture of every single page, and Nancy is going to have a copy for the descriptive book if anybody wants to look up their family. So thanks, Gordon. And the last thing I want to mention, one of the positive things, is the Freeport Cemetery has the original minutes, accounting, and meeting record book from the cemetery when it started in 1868 up on the hill. And it is a wealth of information and genealogical resources. So I went to Mr. Montgomery and I asked him, I says, everything is digitalized now, it's on computer. Do you still need this there, or can we maintain it at the library? The board met and they have given permission for us to be able to keep that original book that started in 1868 here at the, I don't think they received it yet though, but to keep it here at the library. And it's going to be another great resource for the genealogy section here at the library. The first person in the book is David Alter. Dr. Alter, of course, was very famous for discovering spectrometry from Freeport, and he was the first chairman of the board. And it just starts listing all these pioneer names and stuff that are in there. So a lot of you with old names here will recognize a lot of your family in there. So hopefully that gets down to the library soon so you can look at it. As many of you know, the sales of the book will benefit the library. Our library is not supported by federal, state, or county funds. This library is truly an asset to the community, and I think it's a jewel for this community that must be preserved and maintained. Please support the library any way that you can. Writing this book has been a great experience for me. I've really learned a lot about this town, and it is my hometown now too. I hope you enjoy the photographs and the information as much as I enjoyed researching it. So thank you all very much.
How about questions?
Oh, does anybody have any questions?
So your effort really sort of like boosts the purview of our town, surrounding towns. I mean, this really.
I don't do surrounding towns.
Embellishes our.
And there's no volume 2.
Your research really sort of like highlights our borough tremendously.
Yeah, and some of the information that I found is truly amazing. A lot of you don't know that the Pennsylvania Canal went through town from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia. Where the high grade is, the Pennsylvania Railroad bought the canal. And so all they did was take down the canal stuff, graded it, and put the railroad tracks on top of it. Where the high grade is used to be called Railroad Street. And a lot of the businesses and homes face the railroad street or face the canal. Walnut Street or Walnut Way is right above where the VFW is. And there's remnants of that still in town today. That canal was amazing. My favorite chapter personally is chapter 4 on transportation. And I love the information. And Rodney Chapman, really, where's Rodney? Hey, Rodney. Rodney Chapman loves also the history of the canal, and he really helped me out because he used to give lectures on the Pennsylvania Canal. And so Rodney really helped me out, and thanks, Rodney, for that too. But a lot of famous people went through here. Ulysses S. Grant went through Freeport on his way to West Point. He starred in Pittsburgh. One of our presidents went through, after he died, went through Freeport on his way to Pittsburgh, and then he got on a steamboat and he's buried in Ohio. So he came accompanied by members of Congress and every member of the, representing every branch of the military through Freeport. Harriet Beecher Stowe came through Freeport and made comments on what it was like to ride on the canal, and her comments are in the book. Charles Dickens came through Freeport. And there's a lot of neat information on how what his impressions were of going through. Somebody had mentioned that Philadelphia was horrible. You could catch malaria there, where Pittsburgh was a breath of fresh air, obviously before the steel mills and everything else. So, I mean, there's some really neat quotes and stuff that I was able to find on famous people that used to come through Freeport. Jacob Shoop. Now, there's a chapter on famous Freeportians, or not. I don't put famous. I put notable Freeportians. And Rodney's written about several in the past, but I've also recognized Jacob Shoop. I mean, Jacob has had the longest-running family retail store in America, 179 years or something like that. So Jacob's in there as a notable Freeportian. David Alter, the famous doctor. Unfortunately, David died penniless, but the citizens of Freeport put his tombstone up there for him. So just little tidbits of information that I found. Local football players, Eric Ravati, the Christie brothers, Red Bowser, baseball player. Paul Hill, a local Freeport native, was a brigadier general in the Army. A lot of people didn't know that, and to me that's quite an accomplishment. So I've put some people in there that haven't been recognized in the past. And why are they in there? It's because I wanted them in there. Okay. Any other questions? Question over here? Okay, yes ma'am.
I want to know, you talked about the Todd family.
Yes.
Is that the same family that owned the farm that's now Todd Sr?
No, it's not. William, to me it was so interesting. I met a lady online who lives in Alpine, California, who's a descendant of both James Armstrong and William Todd. And she has helped me a lot. And I actually am an amateur genealogist, so I did the Todd genealogy online to research them. I went to Westmoreland Historical Society. They did not even know that William Todd was a state senator. He helped ratify the original Constitution for Pennsylvania. He was a judge in Westmoreland County. He was his neighbor was William Finley, who was the person that started up the Whiskey Rebellion, and liked, I guess, the how his friend was handling things with the Whiskey Rebellion until George Washington said how many troops here to quench the rebellion or something. But William Todd was actually he was William Todd Esquire, so he practiced law, but he didn't study law. But we found his personal library, the contents of his personal library at home, and it lists some law books that he studied on his own, so it would help him in court. So he went back and forth. He was member of several General Assemblies, and he voted against ratification for the country constitution. But he ended his career as a state senator. A lot of people did. Westmoreland County didn't know that. And he's buried in the Unity Presbyterian Church. He was a Presbyterian from Scott-Irish descent. David Todd, everybody said, well, they were brothers. Well, he did have a brother named David Levi Todd, but he was a half-brother that was born in Ireland, and he never came to Freeport. He actually died 14 years before Freeport was founded, and that's what sort of gave me the thought that, gee whiz, maybe it wasn't a brother, maybe it was something else. David Todd, the son, lived on 400 acres on Crooked Creek, there's actually a name of a store, and I actually have a copy of a bar bill that was settled after his when they settled after he died. He died at age like 41 or something like that. His father and son died a year from each other in 1810 and 1811 respectively. But David, I think, had a little booze problem. I hate to say that, but I actually have a bar bill that was settled after his death, and it lists a gill of whiskey, 6 1/4 cents. A quart of whiskey, 25 cents. So it went through all sorts of whiskey and a few beers, and then he ate some too. But his entire bill I have as a copy in the book in chapter 2. Yeah, but that Todd family was very interesting to research, and I found a lot of information on them. And it was really neat, though, to find out that they were father and son. Any other questions?
Steve, is there any papers or things left over from Dr. Alder?
I've not been able to find anything. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of information about doctors in there, except they're mentioned. In Chapter 5 is early businesses, and the Renaissance Committee helped me with that, just brainstorming on everything between 1797 and 1911. The businesses were well recorded. Nothing after 1911. So what you do is people tried to brainstorm on what businesses have been present since 1911. I'm sure that we've missed a lot. Not all the doctors are in there.
And David Alder wasn't a physician, I don't think.
Oh, David Alder was a physician, and the name of his medical school is listed in there. There's a whole section on him. And if any of you know Mandy Buchner from Laneville, Mandy Buchner Allen, she ended up being a journalist for a Norfolk, Virginia radio station, and she sent me pictures of Laneville, and her great-grandfather was David Alder, and she gave me a family picture of the Alters, and that's in chapter 14. So many people have given me pictures, it's phenomenal, and I've tried to recognize them in the book. I'll just go image courtesy of. But Lisa probably has given me over half the pictures in the book. It's amazing what she gave me. There's steamboats on the Allegheny. I've got a river raft coming down from Warren County. A lot of you didn't know this, but before the dam and all the locks and everything that were put in there, you could have walked across the Allegheny at some places in the summer. It was 18 inches deep. And so it had a lot of riffles, and it was shallow. And where was I going with that? I'm sorry? Oh, so Jacob Shoop helped me with that, because Jacob Shoop wrote the weather book. John Shoop, Gary Link did his master's thesis on the weather book, and John had let him in and found the diary of Jacob Shoop. And Jacob mentions in there a lot. A lot of his stuff was dependent on weather, because that's when all the river rafts would come down, and he could sell his wares, because he used to go to Philadelphia and stuff to get his wares. And so Jacob would write, had a freshet yesterday. A freshet is after a thunderstorm, it would raise the river 5 to 10 feet. And when it did that, all these river rafts up in Clarion and Warrenton and all those areas are in coves. And as soon as it rained, they would rush down when the river rose and after a freshet. And Jacob Shoop would write, saw 200 rafts today and 1,500 men. So that's the amount of traffic that would come down the Allegheny. And a lot of them would dock in the eddy, and we had 2 sawmills here. Neff's was at the point, he had a steam sawmill, and there was one on Todd Island. And some of them would do the lumber there, but some of these rafts went as far down as New Orleans. And what they would do is they would break up the rafts, sell the lumber, and they couldn't get back up the river, so they would walk the Natchez Trace up to Nashville and then walk all the way home to the Pittsburgh area. So it's very interesting history with the transportation. I was able to find a river raft coming down the Allegheny, and it was given to me. I had to get permission for all these photographs that didn't come from people around here. New York State Museum, Historical Museum, gave me a picture of corn planter. So there's lots of stuff in there from outside the area, but I had to get special permission to use them. Trains. The Pennsylvania Railroad Historical and Technical Society found out I was doing a book, and they gave me a couple pictures. I asked for, Victor Bukowski had a picture of the platform, the Freeport platform, and I couldn't use it because it was from a book. So I wrote to the society that had it, and they gave me 3 original pictures of the platform from different directions. And I thank Vic for that, for getting me in contact. Well, railroad guys can be fanatics when it comes to trains. And I got probably 30 pictures of trains in Butler Junction and Laneville, Garver's Ferry, and all these other places. So I gave them 35 pictures that I had of Freeport trains. And then they started, oh, would you come to our meetings? Would you do this and all this? But they were very helpful. And these guys are amazing. And one of them is from Freeport. I can't remember his name right now. However, they were very helpful. And there's some great pictures in there of the old Laneville station that became Beale's gas station. A lot of people didn't know that. Garver's Ferry station. Sue Hunter helped me with several pictures, especially aerial pictures of Butler Junction. I've got pictures of the old engine house in Butler Junction and the turnaround. Freeport was mainly they had 2 stations. Possibly a third was going to be built, but they went bankrupt. That was with the Northwestern Railroad. It was supposed to be over there by the Lindell's house, but it never materialized. That's on the 1854 map in the Borough Building. But the Freeport Station up where BJ's is was called the Rye Station, and that's because that's where all the rye came in for Guggenheimer's distillery. And the other station was called the Buffalo Station in Laneville, and that was at the base of the old iron bridge over there. Rodney helped me with the date of that, 1928, for when the newer Laneville Bridge was done, because he took a picture of it. That's the only reason we knew. But so many people have been helpful, and I just thank everybody. Any other questions?
I have a question for you.
Sir?
I thought Armstrong County was formed out of Westmoreland. You're saying
It is.
it actually came out of Allegheny?
No, this was Allegheny County at one time. Allegheny went all the way up to is it like Wycoming? I can't remember what, northwestern something. Anyway, the whole upper part of the Northwest was uncharted land. It was all Indian land. And so it had its own, I can't remember the name. But Allegheny was all the southwestern part of Pennsylvania. Then it changed over and this became part of Westmoreland County. And then in 1800 it became part of Armstrong County. And that's why I had to check all those 3 counties, because there's indentures about Freeport in all 3 counties. I found some in Allegheny County. I found some in Armstrong County. I don't think I found any in Westmoreland County, but I did find a lot of legal actions in Westmoreland County.
Steve, question about the Northwestern Railroad. It always kind of confused me because I grew up on High Street across from
Right.
St. Mary's, and
Right. Northwestern,
It never did.
it never materialized.
Never tracked.
That map in the borough shows it going through Freeport. It comes down High Street, crosses behind, came out where my sister-in-law lived over there, right by Dr. Neff's office, and then down Buffalo. And the station was going to be there where the Lindell's property was, but it never was built. And I found out that Northwestern went bankrupt, and they were bought out by the Western Division. Which railroad was that, Ronnie? Do you remember? It was a Western Railroad or something. And then that was bought out by the Pennsylvania Railroad.
It looks like on that map that they showed the railroad tracks
Yeah,
going on the
we
eastern side of
we think that part of that railroad was graded, but that's as far as it got.
That's great.
Yeah.
I always thought it was there, but it never
No, it never materialized. And then the canal, when it came through, the aqueduct was where the cement bridge is. I've got great pictures from Freeport Road overlooking the BJ Tipple that Ryan Redmond gave me, and then BJ showing the old railroad bridge, the telegraph office over in BJ. They had a restaurant over there right by the railroad, and it went across the Iron Bridge, and that became Railroad Street. But in the canal days, there was a basin between 2nd and 4th Street on Market, and that the woolen mills where Westermans took over the woolen mills. And all the businesses faced the canal, and they would load and unload their goods there. The tool and die place, or the guy, he makes aluminum now, Doherty's, right above the VFW, that used to be an iron foundry. And some of the foundation to that iron foundry still remains in that building. It faced the canal, and there was a bridge going over the canal right there next to his business. And it is a hand drawing of the iron founder on the 1854 map, and it shows the bridge going over the Pennsylvania Canal. And a picture of that's in the book. It's in chapter 5. It's pretty cool. And if you go into that building, in the back, all the timber in the upper part is black with soot from when they had the iron foundry there.
Jets had to be in there.
Yeah, it's amazing. They still have winches and everything else in there. It's pretty cool. Anything else? Thank you all.